Captain Minho stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, feeling very small. The massive circular room stretched hundreds of meters above him, filled with thousands of alien delegates from across the galaxy. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few were just floating balls of light. They all stared at him with confusion and something that looked like pity. "You want us to believe," said Cathrix, the tall reptilian representative from the Valorian Empire, "that humanity's primary weapon is throwing metal?" Minho nodded. Behind him, a holographic display showed a simple diagram of Earth's railgun system. It looked embarrassingly basic compared to the fancy weapons other species had shown. No glowing energy beams, no reality warping technology, no antimatter reactions. Just metal rods accelerated by magnetic fields. "Yes, honored council member," Minho replied. "We call them kinetic impactors. We accelerate dense metal projectiles to very high speeds," and laughter erupted across the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults give when a child says something adorably naive. Cathrix's S-translator struggled to convert his species version of a chuckle. "Captain," another delegate spoke up, "a being made of crystalline structures that refracted light beautifully. Our people had such weapons 10,000 years ago. They are, how do you say, primitive? We evolved past physical projectiles millennia before achieving faster-than-light travel." More laughter. Minho felt his face grow hot. Ambassador Jiwan, standing beside him, touched his shoulder gently. She was the senior diplomat, and her calm expression never wavered. "Perhaps," Jiwan said clearly, a voice cutting through the noise, "the council would like to review the battle reports before making conclusions." The laughter died quickly. Cathrix's face changed, his scale shifting to a darker color that Minho had learned meant discomfort. The Valorian delegate pulled up a data screen, and suddenly the mood in the room shifted completely. 3 weeks ago," Jiwan continued, "the Valorian Fifth Fleet engaged a human defense force near the Saturn orbital stations. The Valorians had 47 warships equipped with plasma cannons, quantum shields, and phase disruptors. Humanity had 12 ships with railguns. The battle lasted 17 minutes. She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. All 47 Valorian ships were destroyed. We lost one vessel. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Cathrix's claws scraped against his console as he pulled up more data, his eyes growing wider with each report he read. "This cannot be accurate," a delegate with too many arms protested. "Quantum shields are impenetrable to physical matter below a certain mass threshold. Your projectiles should have simply bounced off or disintegrated." Minho stepped forward again. "That would be true, honored delegate, if our projectiles were moving slowly. But we accelerate them to approximately 90% of light speed. At those velocities, the kinetic energy becomes—" He paused, searching for simple words, "extremely large." He pulled up a calculation on the holographic display. The numbers were simple, something any physics student would recognize. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. When velocity approached light speed, that squared term became enormous. A 1 kilogram projectile at 90% light speed, Minho explained, carries the explosive equivalent of 1.2 million tons of chemical explosives. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving debris. They are not designed to stop that much concentrated kinetic force. But the cost. Another delegate protested. The energy expenditure. Surely accelerating projectiles to such speeds is prohibitively expensive? Jiwon smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. Actually, it's remarkably cheap. Magnetic acceleration is very efficient. A single railgun shot costs us less than one of your plasma cannon bursts. We can fire hundreds of rounds in the time it takes your weapons to recharge. Cathrix was scrolling through more reports now, his movements becoming more frantic. The Talvari battle group. The Drathian defense fleet. All destroyed by these primitive weapons? Not primitive, Minho corrected gently. Simple. There's a difference. An elderly delegate, whose species Minho didn't recognize, floated forward. She seemed very old, her body wrapped in some kind of environmental suit filled with purple gas. When she spoke, her voice carried weight that silenced the chamber. The human does not understand what he has done, she said softly. None of them do. They've broken the first taboo. Minho exchanged glances with Jiwan. Taboo? We weren't aware of any restrictions on weapon types. Because it was so obvious, so fundamentally understood, that we never thought to mention it. Cathrix's voice rose, his translator adding emotional weight to his words. Every species in this council discovered kinetic acceleration. Every single one. We all had the same breakthrough you had. We all did the same calculations. And we all, independently, decided to never use such weapons in warfare. Why? Minho asked, genuinely confused. The elderly delegate's suit flickered. Because, young human, you cannot turn them off. Your energy weapons stop firing when you release the trigger. Your missiles can be remotely detonated. Your bombs explode once and are done. But your metal rods? She gestured at the holographic display. They keep going. Forever. At 90% of light speed. They will cross the galaxy in a few years, destroying anything in their path. Every shot you miss becomes a threat for centuries. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Minho felt his stomach drop as the implications crashed over him. He looked at the battle reports with new eyes. All those shots that had missed their targets. All those pieces of destroyed ships now tumbling through space at relativistic speeds. Oh no, he whispered. Oh yes, Cathrix replied grimly. Humanity has just weaponized the universe itself, and none of us know how to stop it. Hyunwoo sat in the interrogation room, completely calm despite the restraints around his wrists. The Valorian security forces had arrested him 3 days ago, pulling him from his laboratory at the Science Academy without explanation. They seemed to think he was some kind of spy, which he found almost funny. Chief Investigator Ralvin entered the room, his scales a deep red color that meant anger or stress. He carried a data tablet and slammed it on the table between them. You will tell us, Ralvin hissed, how humanity developed relativistic weapons. Which of our scientists did you bribe? Which research station did you infiltrate? We know your species could not have discovered this technology independently. You are too young, too primitive. Hyunwoo looked at the Valorian with genuine confusion. Discovered what, exactly? The kinetic energy formula? That's basic physics. Do not play games with me, human. Ralvin's claws scraped the table surface. Relativistic kinetic weapons are the most closely guarded secret in galactic history. The mathematics alone requires centuries of theoretical development. No, it doesn't. Hyunwoo interrupted. He gestured at the tablet. May I? Ralvin pushed it toward him suspiciously. Hyunwoo's restraints made typing awkward, but he managed to pull up a simple equation. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared, he said, pointing at the screen. This is literally Chapter 3 in every introductory physics textbook. We teach this to 15-year-olds on Earth. Impossible, Ralvin muttered, but he was staring at the equation. It's not just a human formula, Hyunwoo continued. It's universal. Physics works the same everywhere in the universe. Mass, velocity, energy, they all follow the same rules whether you're on Earth or on your homeworld or in deep space. He pulled up another screen. this time showing historical records from Earth's educational database. Look, here's a textbook from 1687. A human scientist named Newton described the basic laws of motion. We've understood kinetic energy for over 500 years. Rolvin's scales were shifting colors rapidly now, cycling through emotions Hyunwoo couldn't interpret. The investigator sat down heavily in his chair. You truly don't understand, do you? Rolvin said quietly. Every species discovers this formula. Every single one. The Valorians, the Talvari, the Drathians, all of us. We all looked at that simple equation and realized what it meant. That velocity matters more than mass? Hyunwoo offered. That weaponizing it would destroy the galaxy. Rolvin shouted, his composure finally breaking. Look at your equation, human. Really look at it. What happens when you make velocity very large? Hyunwoo frowned, thinking. Wow, since velocity is squared, even small increases in speed create huge increases in energy. If you double the speed, you get 4 times the energy. Triple the speed, 9 times the energy. And if you approach light speed, the energy becomes... Hyunwoo trailed off as understanding dawned. Oh no. Yes, oh no. Rolvin pulled up a simulation on the tablet. A small projectile, barely a kilogram, at 90% light speed. Do you know how much damage it causes? The simulation showed a kinetic impactor striking a planet. The explosion was enormous, creating a crater hundreds of kilometers wide. The shockwave flattened everything for thousands of kilometers. Atmospheric dust blocked out the sun for years. That's one shot, Rolvin said. One missed shot from one of your battles. And it keeps going until it hits something. Lieutenant Soman entered the room, flanked by 2 Valorian guards. She was Hyunwoo's military liaison, assigned to protect human researchers on alien worlds. She did not look happy. Chief Investigator, I must protest this detention. Hyunwoo has committed no crime. He has shared forbidden knowledge. Rolvin protested. He has shared physics, Soman replied coolly. Basic, fundamental physics that any spacefaring species must already know. Unless you're suggesting the Valorians don't understand their own science? Rolvin's scales turned an embarrassed purple. We understand the science perfectly. That is why we never use such weapons. That is why the entire Galactic Council agreed, 10,000 years ago, to mutually ban all relativistic kinetic weapons. It was the first law, the founding principle of our civilization. We all recognized the danger immediately. Hyunwoo rubbed his wrists as Soman removed his restraints. But humanity was never told about this ban, because it never occurred to us that anyone would be foolish enough to actually build and use such weapons. Rolvin stood, pacing the room. The mathematics are so simple, the danger so obvious, that we assumed any species intelligent enough to reach the stars would immediately understand why these weapons must never be deployed. But we didn't know, Hyunwoo said softly. We saw a military advantage and took it. We thought we were being clever, using simple technology to defeat your advanced shields and weapons. Clever, Rolvin repeated bitterly. You have filled 17 star systems with fragments moving at fractional light speed. You have made trade routes impassable. You have created debris fields that will remain dangerous for thousands of years. And you did it because you thought you were being clever. Someone's expression was grim. What happens now? Now? Rolvin looked at them both. Now we must convince your species to stop before the damage becomes irreversible. And we must hope that the Council doesn't decide to eliminate humanity before you destroy us all. Hyunwoo felt cold despite the room's comfortable temperature. He thought about all the battles humanity had won, all the enemy ships destroyed, all the projectiles fired into the vast darkness of space. The equation was so simple. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Such a basic formula, taught to children, but nobody had taught them what it really meant. Nobody had warned them that they were effectively throwing extinction-level projectiles into the galaxy like stones into a pond, creating ripples that would spread for centuries. "The math doesn't lie," he whispered, staring at the equation on the screen. "We just didn't understand what we were calculating." Commander Daehan watched the tactical display with satisfaction as another Zihar-Sin cruiser exploded into fragments. His fleet had engaged the enemy near the Arcturus Gate, one of the most important jump points in this sector. The battle was going exactly as planned. "Target the flagship," he ordered. "All railguns, full power." His weapons officer acknowledged the command, and moments later, a dozen metal projectiles screamed through space at near-light speed. The Drathian flagship's shields flickered and failed under the assault. The ship broke apart like a toy, its hull no match for the kinetic force. "Sir, their formation is breaking," his tactical officer reported. "They're attempting to retreat." "Don't let them," Daehan replied. "Fire at will on all targets." What he didn't see, what nobody was watching in the heat of battle, was the mathematical nightmare unfolding around them. Every shot fired, whether it hit or missed, continued traveling. Every destroyed ship created thousands of fragments, all moving at significant fractions of light speed. The debris field was growing exponentially. 30 kilometers away, Captain Yunji commanded a medical frigate, staying back from the main combat zone. Her job was to rescue survivors and provide emergency medical care. But her navigation officer was making worried sounds, staring at his console with growing alarm. "Captain," the officer said, "we have a problem." "A big problem." And Yunji moved to look at his screen. The navigation computer was tracking thousands of objects, and the numbers were climbing rapidly. Every few seconds, more contacts appeared as the battle continued. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "Debris, ma'am, from the destroyed ships. But it's not slowing down. Some of these fragments are moving at 40, 50, even 60% of light speed." Yunji felt her stomach drop. She had been so focused on the wounded that she hadn't considered the aftermath of the weapons themselves. "Show me projected trajectories." The navigation computer worked for a moment, then displayed a horrifying pattern. Lines crisscrossed through the space around them, representing debris paths. They spread out in every direction, creating a web of potential destruction. "Navigation hazard warnings are going critical," the officer reported. "The computer says this entire region will be unsafe for travel within hours." Yunji grabbed her communication console. "Commander Daehan, this is Captain Yuni. You need to cease fire immediately." "Negative," came the reply. "We have the enemy on the run. This is our chance to—" "Commander, you don't understand. The debris field is becoming critical. If we continue firing, this entire system will be uninhabitable." "Captain, I don't have time for this discussion. Return to your station and prepare for casualties." Yunji slammed her fist on the console in frustration. She looked at her navigation officer. "Calculate a safe path out of the system. We need to evacuate." "Ma'am, there is no safe path. The debris is spreading too fast." Before she could respond, alarms screamed across the ship. A proximity warning, the kind that meant something was about to hit them. Yunji barely had time to grab onto her chair before the impact struck. The medical frigate shuddered violently. Emergency lights flickered on as main power failed. Yunji pulled herself up, her ears ringing. "Damage report. Hull breach on deck 3. We've lost the starboard engine. Casualties in the medical bay. What hit us?" The navigation officer checked his console, hands shaking. "A fragment. Mass approximately 5 grams. Moving at 70% light speed. 5 grams. A piece of metal smaller than a coin. At that velocity, it had punched through their shields and armor like they weren't even there. On the tactical display, Yoonji watched in horror as more ships started reporting similar impacts. A Zerathian destroyer simply disappeared as something tore completely through it. One of Daeyoon's escort frigates lost its bow section to a collision with debris. "All ships, cease fire." Daeyoon's voice finally came over the fleet channel, panic clear in his tone. "Cease fire immediately." But it was too late. The damage was done. Thousands of projectiles and fragments were already in motion, and nothing could stop them now. The tactical display looked like a deadly spiderweb. With danger zones growing larger every second, Yoonji watched as one particular fragment, no larger than a marble according to sensors, traveled through the battlefield. It struck a human destroyer, passed completely through the ship, then hit a Zerathian cruiser behind it. The fragment kept going, its path barely altered, until it had punctured 7 ships in total before finally disappearing beyond sensor range. "Where's it going?" she asked quietly. Her navigation officer traced the trajectory. "Based on its current heading, it will reach the Kepler colonies in about 3 years. 3 years. One tiny fragment would travel for 3 years at near light speed until it potentially destroyed a station or colony on the other side of human space. And there were thousands of such fragments now, all spreading out in different directions. "Get me a communication channel to both fleets," Yoonji ordered. Human and Zerathian commanders. When the channel opened, she didn't wait for permission to speak. "This is Captain Eunji of the medical frigate Mercy. I'm declaring this battle over. Both fleets must cease all hostile actions and coordinate immediate evacuation of this system." "You don't have the authority," someone started to protest. "I have the authority of reality," Yoonji snapped. "Look at your navigation screens. Really look at them. This system is now filled with relativistic debris. It doesn't matter who won the battle. We all lost. This space is unusable." Silence on the channel. She could imagine the commanders checking their own data, seeing the same horrifying pattern she was seeing. Commander Daehyun spoke first, his voice hollow. "How long until the system is safe again?" The navigation officer did the calculation, his face pale. "At current debris density and velocity distribution, approximately 200 years before natural dispersal makes this system navigable again. That's assuming no additional collisions create more fragments. 200 years. An entire star system, rendered uninhabitable not by weapons fire, but by the aftermath of the weapons. The debris would keep spreading, keep traveling, keep creating danger zones across the galaxy." "We didn't destroy the enemy," Daehyun said quietly. "We destroyed space itself." Yoonji looked at the tactical display, at the web of death spreading through the system. Humanity had won the battle, but in doing so, they had created a permanent scar in the fabric of civilization. The Arcturus Gate, once a vital trade route connecting dozens of colonies, was now a hazard zone that would remain dangerous for centuries, and somewhere out there, thousands of fragments were still traveling, spreading the destruction to other systems, other stations, other worlds that had no idea what was coming their way. "Prepare for evacuation," she ordered. "And someone send a message to Earth. Tell them we need to stop using these weapons, before there's no safe space left in the galaxy." Ambassador Ji-won sat at the negotiation table on the neutral moon of Kepler 442b, watching the Galactic Council assemble. 6 months had passed since the first battles, and she looked far more tired than she had at their first meeting. The war had aged her in ways that went beyond simple time. Across from her sat Counselor Sarah of the Talvari, an ancient being whose species had been traveling the stars for millennia. Sarah's crystalline body refracted the chamber's light, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. Those patterns were darker than usual, reflecting her mood. "Let us begin," Cathrix announced, his Valorian scales a neutral gray. The Council has summoned humanity to answer for their continued use of kinetic weapons, despite repeated warnings. We are defending ourselves, G1 replied calmly. Your species attacked our colonies first. We used the weapons available to us. Available to you. Syrah's voice chimed like glass bells, but there was no beauty in the sound. You speak as if you had no choice. As if the mathematics did not scream warnings. As if basic physics did not tell you the consequences. Syrah activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy, but with red zones spreading like an infection. Each red zone represented a region now dangerous due to relativistic debris. 17 star systems completely uninhabitable, Syrah continued. 43 trade routes severed. 812 stations evacuated. 14 colonies abandoned entirely. And the damage continues to spread. Every day, fragments from your battles reach new systems, creating new hazard zones. General Taijin, sitting beside G1, leaned forward. He was a military man, scarred and hardened by combat. Those numbers include damage from battles we were forced into. We didn't start this war. But you are ending it, Catherick said grimly. You are ending everything. Our computational models predict that if kinetic warfare continues at current rates, 40% of colonized space will be inaccessible within a decade. Within a century, the debris density will make interstellar travel impossible in most of the galaxy. A younger delegate spoke up, her species unfamiliar to G1. You are not fighting a war anymore. You are committing cosmic vandalism. You are destroying the galaxy itself. That's not our intention, G1 protested. We simply want to defend our people. Intention is irrelevant, Syrah replied. I will tell you a story, Ambassador. My homeworld orbits its star in a precise path, as all worlds do. 3 weeks ago, a fragment from one of your battles passed through our system. It was tiny, barely a kilogram. It missed our planet by 2 million kilometers. Syrah's patterns flickered with emotion. That fragment's gravitational influence, small as it was at such high velocity, altered our orbit by 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters, Ambassador. Over the next 1,000 years, those 3 centimeters will compound. Our seasons will shift. Our climate will change. Our world will become less habitable, and there is nothing we can do about it. One tiny piece of your weapons has doomed my species to slow environmental collapse. The chamber fell silent. G1 felt the weight of those words crushing down on her. She thought about Earth, about her own children playing in parks under a blue sky, and tried to imagine them living on a world where the very orbit was unstable. We didn't know, she whispered. That is becoming increasingly difficult to believe, Catherick said. Your own scientists have explained the physics to you. Your own captains have witnessed the debris fields. Yet your fleets continue to fire relativistic projectiles. General Taijin stood abruptly. Because we're being attacked. What would you have us do? Surrender? Allow our colonies to be conquered? We would have you use any other weapon. Syrah's chiming voice rose to a painful frequency. Plasma cannons, missiles, lasers, nuclear weapons, biological agents, anything except relativistic kinetics. We would rather you poisoned entire planets than continue creating permanent debris fields. At least poison can be cleaned. At least radiation decays. Your fragments will travel for millions of years. Then give us your technology, Taijin demanded. Give us your shields, your energy weapons, your defensive systems. Level the playing field, and we'll gladly stop using kinetic weapons. Absolutely not, multiple delegates replied simultaneously. A being of pure energy, representing a species G1 had never encountered, spoke for the first time. Its translated voice sounded sad. You still do not understand. We are not trying to disarm you because we fear defeat. We are trying to stop you because you are destroying the galaxy. If we gave you our weapons, you would simply use them alongside your kinetic weapons, and the damage would be even worse. Young diplomat Yuna, who had been silent throughout the meeting, suddenly spoke up. She was fresh from Earth, barely 30 years old, and had been taking notes frantically. What if we helped clean it up? She asked. The chamber turned to look at her. Jiron felt a flash of irritation at the interruption, but Yuna continued. You said the problem is the debris, right? The fragments traveling through space? What if humanity dedicated our resources to recovering those fragments? Impossible, Catherick said immediately. They're moving too fast, spread too widely, and number in the millions. But we made them, Yuna insisted. We accelerated them to those speeds. Could we not do the same thing in reverse? Build ships that can match velocity with the fragments, capture them, or deflect them. Sierra's patterns shifted to a color Jiwan hadn't seen before. The energy expenditure would be enormous. The time required would be centuries. The cost would be less than abandoning 40% of the galaxy, Yuna interrupted. And humanity has one advantage. We're really good at building railguns. We could repurpose our military infrastructure into debris collection systems. General Taijin was nodding slowly. It would give our fleet something to do besides fighting. And it might convince the Council that we understand the severity of what we've done. This is insane, another delegate protested. You're suggesting humanity become the galaxy's janitors? Better janitors than executioners? Yuna replied quietly. G1 looked at the young diplomat with new respect. It was a radical proposal, possibly an impossible one. But it was something. An alternative to endless war and mutual destruction. The Council must discuss this, Sierra said. Her patterns were brighter now, showing cautious hope. But understand this, humans. If you agree to this path, you are committing multiple generations of your species to cleaning up your mess. You are accepting responsibility for damage that will take centuries to repair. We understand, Jiwan said, standing. And if it means our children can travel the stars without fear of debris fields, if it means Council Osera's world can maintain its orbit, then it's worth it. Catherick's S-scales shifted through several colors before settling on a cautious blue. Very well. We will present this proposal to the full Council. But humanity must cease all kinetic warfare immediately, as a show of good faith. General Taijin's jaw clenched, but he nodded. I'll need to speak with Earth Command, but I think they'll agree. We're tired of fighting too. As the meeting adjourned, Yuna approached G1 nervously. Was I out of line, Ambassador? I know I should have waited for permission to speak. G1 smiled tiredly. You might have just saved the galaxy, Yuna. I think protocol can be forgiven. Through the chamber windows, they could see the stars. Beautiful, distant, and now filled with invisible threats traveling at impossible speeds. Somewhere out there, millions of fragments continued their deadly journeys. But for the first time since the war began, G1 felt something like hope. Humanity had broken the galaxy. Perhaps they could fix it too. Engineer Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the cleanup vessel Unity, watching the debris tracking display with intense concentration. 6 months had passed since the summit of desperation, and humanity had kept its promise. Every military railgun ship had been retrofitted for debris collection. Every naval officer had been retrained as a cleanup specialist. It was tedious work. It was expensive work. And it would take generations to complete. Contact acquired, his sensor operator announced. Fragment Delta 77, mass 0.6 kilograms, velocity 62% light speed. Matching velocity, Hyunwoo ordered. The ship's engines burned hard, accelerating to match the fragment's incredible speed. It took 3 hours and consumed enough fuel to power a small city for a week. All of this effort for a piece of metal smaller than his fist. Captain Minho, now commanding the cleanup operations in this sector, watched the process from his station. He had requested this assignment after the council approved the cleaner protocol. Some called it penance. He called it responsibility. Magnetic capture successful, the operator reported. Fragments secured. Yunwu let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. That's fragment 812 for this ship. Only several million to go. Don't think about the total number, Minho advised. It'll drive you crazy. Just focus on the next one. The Unity's mission was to patrol a specific debris corridor near the former battle site at Arcturus Gate. Beside them, 20 other human ships did the same work. Across the galaxy, hundreds more cleanup vessels patrolled their assigned zones. Some worked alone. Others operated in joint teams with alien species who had grudgingly joined the effort. Commander Vextal, a Zeorithian officer, appeared on their communication screen. His species had been humanity's enemy just months ago. Now they worked side by side, hunting the fragments that threatened everyone equally. Unity, this is the Drathian vessel Redemption. We've located a cluster of fragments near coordinates 774 by 321. Requesting assistance. Acknowledged, Redemption, Minho replied. We're en route. The two ships rendezvoused at the coordinates, their sensors painting a picture of chaos. Dozens of fragments orbited each other in a deadly dance, the result of a collision between larger pieces months ago. Each fragment needed to be captured individually. This is going to take days, Vextal observed. His translator carried a tone of weariness that needed no interpretation. Then we better get started, Minho said. They worked in careful coordination, each ship taking turns to match velocity with fragments while the other provided navigation support. It was delicate, dangerous work. One miscalculation could send a ship colliding with debris at relativistic speeds. On the third day of operations, Hyunwoo noticed something odd about one of the fragments they captured. Its composition was strange, not matching any known human or alien alloy. Captain, you should see this, he said, pulling up the analysis. This fragment is old, really old. Carbon dating suggests it's approximately 3 million years old. Minho leaned closer to the screen. That's impossible. These fragments are from battle 6 months ago. Not this one. Hyunwoo enhanced the image, showing strange markings etched into the metal surface. These look artificial. Deliberate. I think this is from a ship, but not one of ours and not from any current species. They contacted the Galactic Council immediately. Within hours, a research team arrived, led by Councillor Sira herself. The crystalline Talvari examined the fragment with equipment far more sophisticated than what the Unity carried. This is a warning, Sira announced after her analysis. The markings are mathematical, universal. They describe the danger of relativistic kinetics. Who made it? Minho asked. A species that no longer exists, Sira replied quietly. We have found similar fragments throughout the galaxy over the centuries. Always old, always damaged, always warning about kinetic weapons. We believed they were from species that destroyed themselves in wars. Now we know the truth. She projected a hologram showing the galaxy 3 million years ago. Red zones spread across it, just like the current map showed. This species used kinetic weapons extensively. They filled the galaxy with debris. Eventually, space became so dangerous that travel was impossible. Their civilization collapsed. They went extinct not from war, but from the consequences of their own weapons. The bridge fell silent. Every human present understood the implication. Humanity had almost repeated history. Would have repeated it, if not for the cleaner protocol. We're sending this fragment to every species in the Council, Sira continued, along with your progress reports. Some species still doubt humanity's commitment to cleanup. This will show them what's at stake. Ambassador Jiwan, now heading the Galactic Restoration Committee, joined the conversation via long-range communication. How is the cleanup progressing overall? Yunwoo pulled up the latest statistics. We've recovered or safely deflected approximately 15,000 fragments across all sectors. That's about 0.2% of the estimated total. 0.2% in 6 months, Ji-won said. At this rate, complete cleanup would take 250 years, Hyunwoo finished. Multiple generations. But the rate is accelerating. As more ships join the effort and we develop better techniques. And the cost? Ji-won asked. Astronomical, Minho admitted. But less than the cost of abandoning 40% of colonized space. Vex Tal spoke up from the redemption. The Drathian Empire has agreed to contribute more ships to the effort. We were your enemies, but this threat affects us equally. Several other species are making similar commitments. Humanity broke the galaxy, Ji-won said softly. But we're teaching it how to heal. That counts for something. Young recruit Yuna, whose proposal at the summit had started all this, watched from the observation deck of a cleanup station orbiting the old battle site. She was 20 years old now, assigned to logistics coordination. Around her, hundreds of ships moved through carefully plotted courses, hunting fragments with dedication that bordered on obsession. Some ships were human. Others were Velorian, Drathian, Talvari, and dozens of other species. Former enemies working together because the debris didn't care about politics or history. It threatened everyone equally, and only cooperation could solve it. A veteran cleanup pilot, an older woman named Jizu, joined Yuna at the window, thinking, "Deep thoughts, kid." "Just wondering if we'll finish in our lifetimes," Yuna replied. "We won't," Jizu said bluntly. "This is multi-generational work, but we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for every ship that'll travel these lanes in the future. For every colony that won't be destroyed by a random fragment. For every world that'll maintain its orbit without interference." "The Council calls us the galaxy's janitors," Yuna said. "Some humans feel insulted by that." Jisu laughed. "Let them. I'd rather be a janitor than a murderer. Besides, there's honor in cleaning up your own mess." On the Unity, Hyunwoo reviewed their next assignment. Another corridor, another 1,000 fragments to hunt. The work would never truly end. Even after they cleared the battle debris, there would be maintenance patrols to catch fragments before they became dangerous. The cleaner protocol wasn't a temporary mission. It was humanity's new permanent role in galactic civilization. Captain Minho addressed his crew as they prepared for the next patrol. "I know this work seems endless. I know it's not as exciting as exploration or as glorious as combat. But every fragment we capture is a life saved. Every debris field we clear is a star system reclaimed. We're not soldiers anymore. We're healers. And that matters." The Unity's engines fired, accelerating toward their next target. Behind them, the Redemption followed, 2 former enemy ships now working as one. Around the galaxy, hundreds of other vessels did the same work, slowly and methodically undoing the damage of humanity's greatest weapon. The math had been simple. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Such a basic formula that children learned it. But the real lesson, the one humanity taught the galaxy, was more complex. It wasn't about the weapons you could build or the enemies you could defeat. It was about taking responsibility when you realized your mistakes. It was about choosing to fix what you broke, no matter how long it took. Yuna watched the cleanup ships through the station window, their lights moving through the darkness like fireflies. Somewhere out there, fragments still traveled at impossible speeds, threatening colonies that wouldn't exist for generations. But humanity was hunting them, one by one, with the same determination they'd once used to fight. They weaponized the universe. Now, they were healing it. And maybe, just maybe, That was the real strength of humanity. Not the ability to destroy, but the willingness to repair. Not the cleverness to break, but the courage to fix. Not the weapons they built, but the responsibility they chose to accept. The galaxy would remember humanity's kinetic weapons for millennia, but they would remember the cleaner protocol even longer.